Imagine a man who wrote one book and changed the world. Imagine a man who died poor, alone and forgotten, yet his ideas lived on. Imagine a man who challenged kings, churches and governments with nothing but words. This is not fiction. This is real. His name was Max Stirner. He lost his father as a baby. He lost his wife during childbirth. He struggled with poverty. He faced rejection. But he never lost himself. Today, you will hear his story, a story of pain, courage, and freedom. As you listen, notice the words. Let them touch your heart. Let them teach you English. Let them show you what is possible. Because this story is also about you. Chapter 1. The boy who lost his father before he knew him. Imagine this. A small baby cries in a quiet room in Bavaria, Germany. The year is 1806. The baby's name is Johann Caspar Schmidt. But one day, the world will know him by another name, Max Stirner. The name Stirner comes from a German word meaning forehead. He had a prominent forehead, so his classmates gave him this nickname. He later adopted Max Stirner as a pen name. Like many writers of his time, he used it when publishing his ideas. This name became the one history remembers. This story helps you improve your listening skills. As you listen, notice the new words. You will hear words about life, struggle, and courage. The baby was born on October 25, 1806, in a town called Bayreuth. His parents were simple people. His father made flutes for a living. The family was not rich, but they had enough. They had hope for their child's future. But life had other plans. When Johann was only 1 year old, his father became very sick. The disease was called tuberculosis. It was a dangerous illness in those days. There were no strong medicines. There were no hospitals like we have today. The father died. Think about this. A child who cannot remember his father's face. A mother alone with a baby. No money coming in, only fear and uncertainty. This moment changed everything for young Johann. His mother's name was Sophia. She was strong, but she was also afraid. She had to find a way to live. She had to feed her child. She had to make decisions no young mother should make alone. In 1809, 3 years after her husband's death, Sophia made a choice. She married again. Her new husband was a pharmacist named Heinrich Bollestedt. The family moved to a new town called Kulm in western Prussia. For young Johann, this meant more change, a new home, a new father figure, a new life. But something was not right in this new family. The relationship in the new family was not easy. Johann felt alone, even when people were around him. He began to watch. He began to think deeply about the world around him. Questions like these may have started forming in his mind. Why do people follow rules? Why do some have more than others? Why must I do what others say? These questions lived inside him. They grew with him. They became part of who he was. In 1819, when Johann was 13 years old, another change came. He was sent back to Bayreuth to attend a prestigious school called Gymnasium. He did not live with his mother anymore. He lived with an aunt. Think about this moment. A young boy, away from his mother, in a new town, in a strict school. No parents to hug him at night. No one to ask if he was okay. But this school was important. It was one of the best schools in the region. Johann studied hard. He read books. He learnt about history, about philosophy, about the great thinkers of the past. He showed a strong interest in thinking and questioning ideas. While they memorized facts, Johann questioned them. While they accepted what teachers said, Johann wondered if it was true. His mind was sharp. His heart was hungry for truth. But there was something else growing inside him too. A feeling of being different. A feeling that he did not belong. A feeling that the world expected things from him that he did not want to give. As you listen, notice how this story shows us that early life shapes who we become. The words you hear will help you understand English better. Johann finished school. He was ready for the next step. He was ready for university. He was ready to find his place in the world. But he did not know that the world would not make it easy for him. He did not know that his greatest battles were still ahead. He did not know that one day his ideas would shake the minds of philosophers for generations. All he knew was that he had to keep moving forward. Chapter 2. The years when dreams turned into dust. Picture this moment. A young man walks through the streets of Berlin. The year is 1826. His name is Johann Schmidt. He is 20 years old. He carries books under his arm. His eyes are full of hope. He has arrived at the University of Berlin. This was one of the greatest universities in Europe. Great thinkers taught here. Great ideas were born here. Johann studied philosophy and theology. He wanted to understand the world. He wanted to understand himself. He sat in lecture halls and listened to famous professors. One of these professors was Georg Hegel. Hegel was a giant of philosophy. His ideas were powerful. His words attracted students from all over Germany. Johann listened. He took notes. But he did not simply accept what Hegel said. He thought about it. He questioned it. He made it his own. This is how Johann's mind worked. He never followed blindly. He always asked, "Is this true for me?" After Berlin, Johann moved to other universities. He studied at the University of Erlangen in 1829. Then he went to the University of Königsberg. Finally, he returned to Berlin in 1832 and completed his studies in 1834. Many years of learning, many books read, many ideas considered. But there was a problem. Johann needed to make a living. He needed a job. He wanted to become a teacher. He took his oral exams in 1835. He hoped to teach at a gymnasium, a high school, but the answer was no. The Royal Brandenburg Commission for Schools rejected him. He was only given a conditional teaching certificate. He could not get the job he wanted. Think about this. Years of study, years of hard work, and then rejection. This was the first big failure in Johann's life, but it would not be the last. Around this time, another tragedy struck. His mother, Sophia, was suffering from mental illness. Her mind was not well. She could not take care of herself anymore. In 1835, she was committed to a mental hospital in Berlin called Charité Hospital. Imagine Johann's feelings. His mother, the only parent he really knew, was now in a hospital. She was lost in her own mind. He could visit her, but she might not recognize him. This was a heavy burden for a young man. But life continued. Johann had to find work. He had to survive. In 1837, he married a woman named Agnes Clara Kunigunde-Butz. She was the daughter of his landlady. She was 9 years younger than him. For a moment, there was hope. A wife, a home, maybe a family. But that same year, Johann's stepfather died. Another loss, another goodbye. And then, in 1838, the worst tragedy came. Agnes became pregnant. Johann waited for the child. He dreamed of being a father. He dreamed of a family that was whole. But the pregnancy did not end well. Agnes fell seriously ill and died in 1838. In a short time, Johann lost his wife and the future he had imagined. Think about this pain. A man alone. No father. No mother who knew him. No wife. No lasting family. Only silence and loss. This was the darkest time in Johann's life. But he did not give up. He could not give up. He had to keep living. In 1839, he finally found work. He got a position teaching literature at a respectable girls' school in Berlin. He taught history and literature. It was not the job he dreamed of. It was not a university position. But it was work. It was money. It was purpose. During this time, Johann began to visit a cafe called Café Staley. He also went to Hippel's wine bar in Berlin. These places were not just for drinking. They were for thinking. They were for talking. Johann met other young thinkers there. They called themselves the young Hegelians. They followed Hegel's ideas, but they also questioned them. They talked about religion, about politics, about freedom. Some of these people would become famous. Some of these thinkers were connected to this circle, including Karl Marx and Bruno Bauer. And Johann Schmidt was there too. In this group, Johann gained a reputation. He was calm in appearance, but his words were sharp. He was highly critical of religion. He often expressed radical ideas. His ideas often led to intense debates. During this period, Johann occasionally mentioned a book he was working on, but few of his friends took it seriously. They thought he was just talking. They did not know that this book would change everything. As you listen, notice the vocabulary about struggle and perseverance. These words will help you speak English better. Johann was building something inside. Ideas, thoughts, a philosophy that was all his own. But the world was not ready for what he would say. And Johann was not ready for what the world would do to him. Chapter 3. The book that changed everything forever. Imagine this scene. The year is 1843. Johann Schmidt is 37 years old. He's sitting in a small room in Berlin. Papers are everywhere. Books are stacked high. A candle burns on the table. He is writing. For years he has been thinking. For years he has been questioning. For years he has been building this idea in his mind. Now it is time to put it on paper. This story helps you improve your listening skills. As you listen, notice how one moment can change a life. In 1843, Johann married again. His new wife's name was Marie Danhart. She was part of the young Hegelians group. She was intelligent. She was independent. She had money from her family. For a moment, Johann had stability. A wife, some money, a teaching job. But inside, something was pushing him. The book was calling him. In 1844, Johann made a bold decision. He resigned from his teaching position. He left his stable job. He did this before his book was even published. Why would a man do this? Why would he give up security? Because he believed in his ideas. He believed they were important. He believed the world needed to hear them. At the end of 1844, the book was finished. It was called Der Einzige und sein Eigentum in German. In English, it would be known as The Ego and Its Own. The book was published by Otto Wigand. Copies were rapidly distributed to bookstores, possibly to avoid censorship. The book was dated 1845, even though it was published in late 1844. Think about this moment. A man has poured his soul into a book. He has risked his job. He has risked his reputation. He has risked everything. Now, the world would read his words. But what did the book say? Johann, who now called himself Max Stirner, wrote about the individual. He wrote about the self. He wrote about freedom. He said that social classes, the state, the masses, and humanity are abstractions. They are ideas, not real things. They should not control us. He wrote about the ego, the self, as the driving force behind human action. He believed that each person should live for themselves. Each person should own themselves. He wrote, "I am the owner of my might." These ideas were revolutionary. Dangerous. They challenged everything people believed. The book upset many people on the left. It rejected socialist ideology. It rejected religious ideology. It rejected all ideologies that put something above the individual. Bruno Bauer wrote articles against Stirner's ideas. Ludwig Feuerbach wrote against him. Moses Hess wrote against him. Arnold Rouge wrote against him. Even Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels devoted a large section of their book, The German Ideology, to attacking Stirner's work. Think about this. The greatest thinkers of the time felt threatened by one man's book. They felt they had to respond. They felt they had to defend their ideas. This shows the power of Stirner's words. But there was a problem. The book was not a popular success. It was not a financial success. Stirner had left his job. He had no steady income. He tried to invest Marie's inherited fortune in a commercial enterprise, but he failed. The money was gone. The business was gone. The hope was gone. And then, in 1846, Marie left him. She went to live in London. Later, she told Stirner's biographer that he was a very sly man whom she had neither respected nor loved. She said their relationship was more of a cohabitation than a marriage. Another loss, another goodbye. He remained largely detached from the political events of his time, including the Revolution of 1848. His daily life was dominated by domestic routine and economic hardship. He continued to write intermittently, but commentators found his later work to be of little independent interest. As you listen, notice the words about success and failure. These are important English vocabulary words. Stirner had written a book that challenged the world, but the world did not embrace him. The world pushed him away. He was alone. He was poor. He was forgotten. But his ideas did not die. They waited. They slept. They waited for the right time to wake up. Chapter 4. The Silent Years When the World Forgot His Name. Picture this moment. Berlin, 1850. A man walks through the streets. His clothes are worn. His face is tired. He carries no books. He seems to carry little hope. This is Max Stirner, the man who wrote one of the most radical books of the century. The man who challenged the greatest thinkers of his time. Now, he is invisible. From 1847 onward, Stirner lived in poverty. Some say he often struggled with debts. He had no money. He had no home that was truly his. He had few lasting relationships. He spent 2 periods in debtor's prison. The first time was from March 5th to March 26, 1853. The second time was from January 1st to February 4th, 1854. Think about this. A philosopher in prison, not for crime, not for violence, but for debt, for not having enough money to live. This was the reality of Max Stirner's life. But he did not stop working. He did not stop thinking. He produced a German translation of The Wealth of Nations. This translation was published in 1847. This was a significant work. It was one of the available German translations at the time. He also wrote other things. In 1845, he wrote Stirner's Critics, a reply to Feuerbach, Seliger, and Hess. In 1847, he wrote The Philosophically Reactionary under the name G. Edward. His last book was History of the Reaction, published in 1852. But none of these works brought him money. None of these works brought him fame. None of these works changed his situation. Some people say that Stirner, some sources suggest he briefly lived more comfortably towards the end of his life. They say he afforded a decent, though not affluent lifestyle. His social life included visits to the salon of Baroness von der Goltz. There, he aired radical opinions. But this was a small comfort, a small light in a dark time. The truth is, Stirner was forgotten. His book was out of print. His name was not spoken in the great halls of universities. His ideas were not taught to students. At the time of his death, Stirner's brief period of notoriety was long over. There was little sign that his work might have any longer-term impact. Think about this. A man who believed his ideas would change the world. A man who risked everything for those ideas, and in the end, silence. But Stirner did not know what would happen after he was gone. He did not know that his book would be translated into at least 8 languages. He did not know that it would appear in over 100 editions. He did not know that future generations would read his words and feel understood. He did not know that anarchists, existentialists, and individualists would claim him as their own. He did not know that Friedrich Nietzsche would be compared to him. He did not know that Jean-Paul Sartre would be connected to his ideas. He did not know that post-structuralists would find meaning in his work. All Stirner knew was the present. All Stirner knew was the struggle. All Stirner knew was the next day, the next meal, the next breath. As you listen, notice how this story teaches us about patience and legacy. The English words you hear will help you understand complex ideas. In May 1856, Stirner contracted a fever. He was stung by a winged insect. The bite was on his neck. The infection spread. The fever grew. There were no antibiotics. There were no modern treatments. There was only pain and weakness. On June 25, 1856, Max Stirner died. He was 49 years old. He died in Berlin, the city where he had spent most of his adult life. He died alone, as he had lived for many years. He died forgotten, as the world had made him. But death was not the end of his story. Death was the beginning of something else. Chapter 5. The Legacy That Rose from the Ashes of Oblivion. Imagine this. It is years after Stirner's death. His book is being read again. His words are being spoken again. His ideas are being discussed again. In America, a man named Benjamin R. Tucker discovers Stirner's work. Tucker is an anarchist. He starts a journal called Liberty in 1881. He spreads Stirner's ideas across the ocean. In France, Stirner's work is translated in 1900. Young anarchists develop a fascination for the book. It becomes the Bible of anarcho-individualism. Think about this. A man who died in poverty and obscurity. His ideas now inspire people across the world. His words now give courage to rebels and thinkers. This is the power of true ideas. They do not die. They wait. They find new minds. They find new hearts. Stirner's influence grew in the early part of the 20th century. A group of anarchists in Paris were deeply influenced by his work. Jules Bonneau, Raymond Quetelet, André Saudi, and others read Stirner and felt understood. They saw in his words a call to live freely, a call to reject authority, a call to own oneself. Stirner is now credited as a major influence in the development of individualism, nihilism, existentialism, postmodernism, and anarchism. His philosophy is studied in universities. His book is read by thousands. At the beginning of the 20th century, Stirner was portrayed as a precursor of Friedrich Nietzsche. In the 1960s and 1970s, he was rediscovered as a forerunner of existentialism. More recently, he has been identified as a nascent post-structuralist. His work had a destructive impact on his left Hegelian contemporaries. It played a significant role in the intellectual development of Karl Marx. Marx spent over 300 pages attacking Stirner in the German ideology. This shows how important Stirner was. Even his enemies had to take him seriously. Even his critics had to respond to him. As you listen, notice the vocabulary about influence and legacy. These words will help you discuss ideas in English. Stirner's insistence that his contemporaries had failed to break with religious modes of thought prompted most of the leading left Hegelians to defend their work publicly. Feuerbach was widely seen as struggling to maintain a besieged and outdated position. Stirner's work forced Marx to reconsider the role that concepts of human nature should play in social criticism. It motivated Marx's break with Feuerbach. This is the mark of a true thinker. Not popularity, not money, not fame, but impact, the ability to change how people think. Stirner taught that there was no objective social reality independent of the individual. He taught that all persons are capable of self-awareness. He argued that each person should act as an egoist, prioritizing their own autonomy. These ideas were radical then. They're still radical now. But what can we learn from Stirner's life? We can learn that truth is more important than comfort. Stirner chose his ideas over his job. He chose his philosophy over his security. He chose authenticity over acceptance. We can learn that failure is not the end. Stirner failed many times. He failed as a husband. He failed as a businessman. He failed to find financial stability. But his ideas survived. His legacy grew. We can learn that being forgotten is not the same as being worthless. Stirner died unknown, but his work found new life after he was gone. Sometimes, the world needs time to understand. We can learn that courage is not the absence of fear. Stirner was afraid. He was alone. He was poor. But he kept writing. He kept thinking. He kept being himself. This story helps you improve your listening skills. As you listen, notice how one life can teach us many lessons. Max Stirner's life was not easy. It was not comfortable. It was not successful in the way most people measure success. But his life was true. He lived according to his own principles. He owned himself. He was free, even when the world tried to bind him. In the end, that is what matters. Not how much money you have. Not how many people know your name. Not how comfortable your life is. What matters is this. Did you live as yourself? Did you own your choices? Did you refuse to be owned by others' expectations? Stirner's answer was yes, and that is why we remember him. That is why we tell his story. That is why his words still speak to us today. Now I want to leave you with something important. You are listening to this story for a reason. Maybe you are learning English. Maybe you are interested in philosophy. Maybe you are searching for something in your own life. Whatever your reason, remember this. Your life is your own. No one else can live it for you. No one else can make your choices. No one else can own your thoughts, your dreams, your decisions. Like Stirner, you will face struggles. You will face rejection. You will face moments when you feel alone and forgotten. But like Stirner, you can choose to be true to yourself. You can choose to own your life. You can choose to live with courage, even when it is hard. The world will try to tell you who to be. The world will try to tell you what to want. The world will try to own you, but you do not have to accept that. You can be free. You can be yourself. You can live your life on your own terms. This is the lesson of Max Stirner. This is the gift of his story. This is what he wanted to tell the world. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps us create more content like this. More stories, more lessons, more inspiration. Now I want to ask you something. Think about this question. What is one thing in your life that you will not let others control? Write your answer in the comments below. Share your truth. Share your courage. Share your story. Many people will watch this video, but only a few will comment. Be one of them. Your voice matters. Your life matters. You matter. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, your life is your own. Own it. Live it. Be free.